Good morning, I'm Maiki Oreta with the latest this hour here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. President Bongbong Marcos has ordered concerned government agencies to provide immediate aid to those affected by the bad weather. Typhoon Karina and the enhanced southwest monsoon have been dumping heavy to intense rains around most of the country. The president is holding a situation briefing this morning to assess the situation to ensure that the necessary assistance is provided promptly and effectively. President Marcos says that the government has already pre-positioned aid worth over 2 billion pesos, while around 4,500 personnel are on standby for potential search and rescue operations. The stock market has been open for about half an hour now. Let's take a look at how the index is doing. Now, so far, the PSE index is up by 0.6% to 67.53 rather. So the all shares index up as well, up by 1.1% to 36.38. Financial sector slightly down by 0.2%. Industrial sector, that's up. It's up by 0.7%. Holding firms up by 1.7%. Services up by 1.5%. Mining and oil up by 0.1%. And the property index continues to slide, down 1.62%. Now, to tell us more about what we can expect from the market, we're joined on the line by Matt Cabangon, the president of AAA Securities. Hi, Matt. Thanks for being with us this morning.
Hi, Mikey. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be in the show.
Okay, Matt, let's go to what's glaring. Yesterday, the property sector was down 1.6%. Right now, it's down by about as much. How much do you think that has to do with the president's sauna earlier this week and the complete ban on POGOs?
So the slide in the property sector was largely expected as a direct consequence of the president's announcement that POGOs would be banned. I read a report recently from B2 Property Consultants that about 11% of all office space demand comes from POGOs. Mm-hmm. So, that's about a tenth of all office space. That's a very big chunk of demand that's going to evaporate. And, basically within 4 months, that 11% will go to zero. And I think the big question there is who will absorb that hole? Who will plug that hole? And that's really why the property sector is reeling right now.
That's a big question, because not too long ago, construction was on overdrive as everyone during the Duterte administration was preparing for the influx of this sector. Now that is going to go kaput, you're right. How is the property sector, how are they going to be able to plug this void?
So, that's a very tough question. I think as far as office space is concerned, they have some very large structural challenges. Because aside from POGO, the other sort of cornerstone tenants for commercial space are BPOs, call centers. And ever since the pandemic, they have shifted more towards a hybrid or even outright work from home setup. So there is a lot of office vacancy right now, and that's really keeping valuations from the property developers and their REITs quite depressed. And I think it will stay that way for some time.
Mm-hmm. Focusing on the index heavyweights, Matt, can you walk us through the level of exposure they have in this sector? I mean, it's diminished, over the past couple of years, but can you walk us through the extent of the exposure they now have?
So property, I would say, is one of, or if not the second biggest factor when it comes to thinking about our index. Because when you look at the big conglomerate heavyweights, your SMs, your Ayalas, your JG Summit, their biggest or second biggest subsidiary is their real estate arm. That's your Ayala Land, your SM Prime Holdings. These really are the players that dominate our index. So I think when investors think about blue chip in the index and where to invest moving forward, I think they have to be very strategic and very picky, because I think it's going to be a stock picker's market for a while, and it's not going to be one of those markets where everything sort of just rallies together. People will have to be very selective.
Correct. Speaking of selectivity, another thing this president mentioned in the SONA was more energy projects to address the anticipated power shortages. What are the specific firms that you see benefiting from these investments?
So, as far as the big ticket energy projects go, it's really the usual suspects who are most to benefit. That's your San Miguel Corp, your Aboitiz Power, your First Gen. But I think what's particularly exciting and what really has actually driven a lot of the new listings in the PSE over the last few years is green energy. And that's another point that the president made at the SONA. And I think that's where you'll get much more diverse set of players, much more names, big and small. So I think that's something that should keep investors excited for years to come.
All right. Now, another market driver, inflation and interest rates. Inflation, is always top of mind. June inflation eased to 3.7% from 3.9% in the previous month. Year to date, that brings us to 3.5%. Now, it's within the government's target range of 2 to 4%, but still in the higher end of that band. That said, Matt, what do you expect the BSP to do in its next couple of meetings in terms of interest rates?
Mikey, you're right. When I heard the president on inflation really was top of mind. It was the first thing he mentioned, and that was a point that he kept coming back to in his speech. And to his administration's credit, inflation has gone back to the target band of our government. But as far as the BSP, their future moves, I think, are highly dependent on what the U.S. Fed will do. Because even though inflation is a bit more tame now, I think a much larger issue that they have to address first is the peso devaluation. I think if the BSP were to cut rates ahead of the U.S. Fed and really increase or that interest rate, decrease the interest rate differential, I wouldn't put it out of the question to see the peso move towards 60 even, should they move ahead.
Okay, peso is super important too. But in terms of your expectations, do you expect the BSP to take a looser stance on monetary policy? There have been indications that they're going to take a less hawkish, more dovish stance. What do you think they're going to do specifically?
I think you're right in that regard. That's very much in line with global central banks. Everyone is taking a much more dovish. Everyone's taking on a tone that's much more open to easing, and that perhaps inflation is, in its dying days. So I do expect the BSP to keep hinting at the rate cut. I just don't expect them to pull the trigger sooner than our global peers.
Okay, so many more questions to ask, but that's all the time that we have for now. Thank you so much, Matt. That was Matt Cabangon, the president of AAA Securities, sharing his thoughts on the market with us. And that was the latest this hour. I'm Maiki Oreta. Tune in again at 11 for more updates here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Always on top.